We're on Daf Daled Amid Beis. In the middle of the Amid, we brought down the sheet of Rav Anan Amar Shmuel. He said, Yisrael mumar lavais gechavim mutar lechel mishitase. Yisrael, who's a mumar specifically, b'avodah zara, you could eat a shchita. It's like a mumar for other things. Morning. Just reviewing where we're up to, we said that a yid who is known to be untrustworthy regarding avodah zara is you could still eat a shchita, which is a big chiddush, right? Avodah zara is a pretty terrible thing. You wouldn't consider such a person, basically, from our view, the way we would look at it, someone who's avodah zara is essentially he's a non-believer. Can get worse. But and the Gemara will say that, but it's still not as bad as someone. It's not really a non-believer. We're going to see later on in the Gemara, someone who doesn't believe in any of the mitzvahs is worse than someone who doesn't believe in avodah zara. So there are two levels, and it seems the Gemara has said this. We've seen this. There's a special yetzer hara for avodah zara that we can't understand, and I guess it could be like what we described earlier. We had a few blot ago that a person could believe in avodah zara, a guy could believe in other deities, but also believe in the Rebbeinu Shalom. He says the Rebbeinu Shalom is on top of them all, but he's out of reach. He doesn't involve himself. And my Getchka, he's the one who's lemaisa for me. So it could be Yidden also. They had such a thing that they believed in the Rebbeinu Shalom, but they also thought that some other avodah zara, I should say other avodah. There is an avodah zara that could also help them. And it's a yetzer hara that we don't have anymore. In any case, okay, that was just not really relevant to the. It's not from the Gemara. In any case, that was Rav Anan Amar Shmuel's shita, which the Gemara is going to try to prove back and forth whether this is true. That someone who's a mummer for avodas gechavim, he is suspect. He often is avodah zara. You could eat his shchita, and he said we see it from this story from Achav and Yeshaphat. That Yeshaphat ate. The pasuk says Yeshaphat ate from the shchita. He ate by the suda. It says actually that he was mesis. That Achav, the melech, who was Russia, was mesis Yeshaphat by giving him food and to eat and drink. Even though Achav was a Russia and he was avodah zara, he still Yeshaphat, who was a tzaddik, still ate from his food. So you see, someone could eat from the shchita of someone who's avodah zara. Okay, so that was the raya. So we're 3 lines from the bottom on Daled Amud Beis. The Dilma Zavuch Gavri the Achav Achav Gavri. Maybe that which Achav and his men shechted was only eaten by his own people.
Did we? I thought we were up to the Dilma Avadia Zavach. Did we do that yesterday?
The Dilma, where? The Dilma who?
Where
are you talking about? I don't mind going back. I just don't know where it is. Dilma Avadia Zavach. That was we were a little bit past that, but
we did. Or I didn't. I don't remember.
We'll just go back. It's like 10 lines up. Talking about Dilma Avadia Zavach. Maybe Avadia, who was a servant of Achav's, maybe he did all of the shchita. Talking about Leroy Ksiv. It was shechted for many people. One person couldn't have shechted for everyone. You remember seeing this? But Avadia loy have a sabik. Avadia wouldn't have been able to do for so many people. And where it says Dilma Shivas Alpayim Zavuach, maybe the 7,000 that there were 7,000 from Yidden who were not avodah zara by Achav. Maybe they were the ones who shechted. All those that did not bend the knee to the avodah zara. So they were hiding from Izavel, so they weren't evident. They wouldn't have gone and done the shchita because they were not revealing themselves to Achav, he would have killed him out. So he didn't. They wouldn't shecht in public. The Dilma Gavri, the Achav have a malu. Maybe Achav himself was a Rasha and Ovid Avodah Zarah, but his followers were not Ovid Avodah Zarah. Well, Isaac said, "Moishel Makshiv al Tvar Shaka, Kol Mashosh V'Shayim." The pasuk says that a Moishel, a ruler who listens to falsehood, all those who serve him are Rishayim. So if they served Achav, they were also Rishayim. The Dilma Gavri they Shafet Nami Lehavim Mali. Maybe the followers of Yehoshaphat also were not so careful, and they were Ovid Avodah Zarah as well, and that's why they ate from Achav. They didn't care. Down the Lehavim Malu, Zavur Gavri the Achav Achal Gavri the Yehoshaphat. So Zavuach Gavri the Achav Achal Gavri the Yehoshaphat. Maybe with the problem with saying that Evadia, who was a servant of Achav, and he was a tzaddik, that he was the one who shechted everything, we said he could have done for everyone. We're saying maybe Yehoshaphat's men were not so good, and he himself was the only one who was a tzaddik, and therefore he ate from Evadia, and all the rest of his followers ate from the tray for food. The Moishel Makshav al Tvar Shaka, Kol Mashos Rishayim, al Tvar Emes Mashos of Tzadikim. Since we say that the followers of a bad ruler, of a Rasha, are Rishayim, the followers of a Tzadik are also Tzadikim. So Yehoshaphat's followers were Tzadik. Now the Gemara adds, V'dilma Zavuch Gavri, the Achav Achal Achav Gavri, Zavuch Gavri, the Yeshavat Achal Yeshavat Gavri. Maybe those things that were shechted by, maybe basically Yehoshaphat's men who were tzaddikim shechted their own food. So Achav's men shechted his food, and his men ate that, and Yehoshaphat's men ate their own food. So Gemara have a maflig nafshemini on Amid Aleph, the top of Hey Amid Aleph. No, that there was no such separation between in the Msuda. Everyone was mixing their food. There was no separation. Minalan, how do we know that they were all integrated? It says L'gabi Yehoshaphat and Achav that they said that I'm going to be like you and my nation is going to be like you. Does it mean that just if we're saying that means that their men are going to have the same standards of frumkeit? Does it mean that also by their horses are going to have the same standard of frumkeit? Generally, horses are not religious. Ella ma the haviasusach the haviasusi. Ella ma, you were just saying, I accept the same fate for my horses as with yours. He was just throwing in his lot with him, and he's saying we're going to fight alongside of you. So the Kamayni Kamaycha Kami Kamecha is also talking about the fighting. Achanami Mahadavi Alecha Viluya Amach Viluya Amach. Whatever will happen to you and to your nation, Havi Alai Viluya will happen to me and my nation. Viluya Ami. Elamehach. So where do you see that Yehoshaphat threw his lot in together with Achav, that they're going to have the same, that they're going to have, and they're going to be unseparated, even legabi religious obligations? Eliyahu, Melech Yisrael, Yehoshaphat, Melech Yehuda, Yoshim, Ishal Kisem, Levashim, Begodim, Begoyrin, Pesach Shar Shemer. It says the Achav, the Melech Yisrael, and Yehoshaphat, the Melech Yehuda, were sitting together, each on his throne, wearing their begodim, their royal garments, at the Goyrin, which is the threshing floor, Pesach Shar Shomer, at the entrance to the gate of Shomer. My Goyrin, what does it mean, the Goyrin, the threshing place? Ilem Goyrin Mamish. If you say it was literally a threshing place, Adu Shar Shomer, Goyrin Hava. Would you say that the gates, you don't have a threshing place at the gates to the province? Elaki Goyrin, it was like a Goyrin, the Tanan, Sanhedrin Hoysek Yechatzi Goyrin Agula. The Sanhedrin was like a half moon, like a half circle, that everyone was seated. Like you see to this day, a court very often is, or any kind of body, governing bodies. They'll sit in a half circle so everyone can see each other. They should Ryan says that they could see one another. So from the fact that they were sitting like a Sanhedrin, that tells you that they were like a Sanhedrin, also that they shared the same halachic standards. Compared to a Sanhedrin, that a Sanhedrin has obviously has a single standard of religiosity. So therefore, it must have been that the men of Yehoshaphat were willing to eat, and Yehoshaphat himself, they were all tzaddikim, and they ate from the shechita of Achav, who was a Eved Avodah Zarah. So you see, this is a raya to the rule of Rav Anan, I think. I'll bring another raya to Rav Anan. It says about Eliyahu when he was hiding in the cave during the Ra'ov, during the famine, and he used to have Arvim coming to bring him bread and meat in the morning and bread and meat at night. He would bring him food that was shechted by Achav. So you see that Eliyahu was clearly a tzaddik, and he was eating food that was shechted by Achav, that was being brought to him by these Arvim. No, that's different. That he was commanded to do so by the Rebbeinu Shalom, so therefore he could trust the Rebbeinu Shalom's hashgacha. My Arvim, what does it mean when he was brought food by Arvim? Ravina Arvim Mamish, it means literally crows. The crows would pick up the food and bring it to him. Maybe it was two people whose names happened to be Arvim. It says they killed Erev, who was from Tzur Erev, and Zev. You see there's someone named Erev. So maybe it was two people whose name was Erev. Says that doesn't make any sense that it happened to be he was brought food by two people whose name was Erev. Even if there is such a name, it's not a common name. Why would Eliyahu have brought food to the two people who had this weird name? Maybe it was just two people, Arvim. Doesn't mean that he was literally brought by crows, but rather it was brought from two people who came from a place called Erev. Aram went out in troops, Vayeshu Me'eretz Yisrael, Naira Katana, and they brought a Naira Katana. The Kashilan, Karla, and then Kashilan, Karila, Naira, Karla Katana. She's called a Naira and she's called a Katana. Those are two separate things. Naira is after Bas Mitzvah, and Katana is beneath my Mitzvah. Rapada Katana Dimin Neurin. So it means that she was a Katana from the place called Neurin. So you could call someone because of the place they're from. So maybe these Arvim were really just people from Erev. So Gemara Imkain Urbayim Mibayale. If you talk about people from Erev, you should be called Arbayim, natives of Erev, not Erevim. I don't know what the point of this whole explanation of what these Erev. I guess the Gemara is trying to minimize the nace.
Trying to minimize the raya.
How does it minimize the raya?
We're trying to answer raya.
Well, it's coming. It's either case. It's coming from Achav's shchita. It's the question who brought it. We're saying it was brought by people instead of by crows. We have no basis really for this statement that it came from the shchita of Achav. That was just an assertion by Rabbi Yehuda Marav. So another right. Hakol shoichten va'afilu kuti va'afilu aral va'afilu Yisrael mum. Going back, we're moving off this discussion of Rav Anan. Oh, I'm sorry, we're not. We'll bring a riot from this brisa that we had brought earlier. We said everyone could do shchita, even a kusi, even an aral, someone who didn't get a milah, and even a Yisrael mum. Hi aral hechidan. What kind of aral are we talking about? We had this before. If he's uncircumcised because it's a sakana, because he has a family history of what is it called, hemophilia, that the child, a previous brother, died from mila. I think it's happened twice. Then you don't give a mila for the third brother, so because of it's a sakana. So how Yisrael Ma'alihu? So certainly you could trust the Shechita. There's nothing untrustworthy about it. Ela Pshita Murmala Arelis. We're talking about someone who grew up and his father didn't give him a milah, and he himself decides he's not getting a milah. He's a milah. He's a mumma l'davar echad. Ema seifa v'afil Yisrael mumma. But the Brisa says also Yisrael mumma. So if this arl is a mumma, why would you say separately Yisrael? Heichidan. He mumma l'davar echad. If the mummer is talking about that he's only a mummer for one avera, hainu mumma l'arelis. That's the same thing as someone who declines to get a milah. So there's also a mumma l'davar echad. Ella mumma l'avodas gechavim. Ella must be a mumma l'avodas gechavim l'ravanan. It's talking about someone who is Ibn Avodah Zarah. We're saying the Ravanan that even a mumma l'avodas gechavim, his shechita is trusted. Loy, maybe a mumma l'avodas gechavim you can't trust the shechita. Someone who is Ibn Avodah Zarah, it's as if he's rejecting the entire Torah. When we say mummer, it's not the same thing as mummer l'arelis. Mummer l'arelis is talking about someone who's a mummer for an unrelated mitzvah. So such a person you trust the shechita. But now it's saying the second chiddush, even someone who's a mummer legabe nevelis, that he'll eat nevelis le teyavin. You could trust the shechita because we say, even though he's a mummer on that related to eating, legabe eating chafis, but he himself would rather eat food that's kosher, but he's weak and he gives in. So that doesn't, like Rava said, that doesn't stop us from using a shechita. But someone who's a mumma l'avodah zarah, it's like a mumma l'chol ha'torah kula, and him we don't trust. Meisvei, michem, the pasuk says. Now we'll makes a little bit of a switch over. We're talking now legabi who can bring a carbon. So the Torah pasuk says. Someone from amongst you who brings a carbon, like kolcham, not everyone can bring a carbon. It's mitzi, then a mummer cannot bring a carbon. Michem, bochem, bechem chalakti v'loy beumas. We also dash from michem that only applies to yidden, but not, Ovid Kechavim who brings a carbon. We've seen before that Ovid Kechavim can send a carbon. It can be menad of a carbon. There's no such thing as a mummer by an Ovid Kechavim. It's hard to exactly wrap your mind around what would be a mummer. I guess it means a mummer for the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. Even if he's Ovid, he eats Evim and Achai, he could still send a carbon. Probably, I assume also, well, no. Avodah Zarah, I would think Avodah Zarah also, because Avodah Zarah by that, it's not like connected kol ha'torah kula for them. It's just one of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. Min ha'behema lehevi b'nei adam, and this is a really actually good raya, right? We're talking about Ovdei Avodah Zarah, and they could still send a carbon. You see that it's possible to be. Why are they sending a carbon? They want to get schusim. So obviously they do believe in the Bereshit, even though they also believe in Avodah Zarah, like we explained before. Mina behema, the pasuk also says, Mina you should send from behema. Lahevi bnei adam shedoimim laheb behema. The third thing the Brisa says is also coming to tell you that someone who's like a behema, you can accept karbanos from people who are over averis in order to give them tshuva. So this is already a little bit difficult because we said before a mummer, now we're saying you do accept from Paisha Yisrael. And finally we say chutz min hamumar umnasach zayayin mechal shabbos b'farasya. But you can take from a mumar umnasach zayayin mechal shabbos b'farasya. So we've had like three separate statements that contradict each other. We said you can't take from a mumar. Then we said you could take from Paisha Yisrael. Then we said you could take from a mummer and from someone who is menasach yayin, which is really he's pouring out wine for Avodah Zarah. He's being Avodah Avodah Zarah, and the Chal Shabbos for Heshya, those are excluded. So we're going to analyze it. Hagufa kasha. Amarta michem v'loy kolchem l'hoytzi yisam mummer. We said we're excluding a mummer. But the time become kabbanas Paisha Yisrael we take from people ha'over averis. So the Reish is talking about someone who rejects the entire Torah. From him, we don't take a carbon. He has a weakness in one type of mitzvah.
Because that would be like Avodah Zarah.
What?
First called Parakula, referring to Avodah Zarah.
We didn't get to Avodah Zarah. Menasach is a yayin. It's not Avodah Zarah.
So what does that mean? The ones mean the moment of
Chol
Parakula.
Parakula means he literally says, "I'm not being. I don't." It could be he's not even Avodah Zarah. In any case, Chol Parakula includes Avodah Zarah.
Right.
He's excluded.
Didn't we earlier say that if you do Avodah Zarah, it's as if you're Kaifa Kala Parakula?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm saying if yeah. So it's as if. So therefore, but Ravanan says no. Ravanan says, I don't treat it like it as if it's that wasn't a limud per se. That's someone who's Ovid Avodah Zarah. We said that the reason for those who say that if you're Ovid Avodah Zarah,
It's worse
is going to be worse than Stam Mitzvah Echad is because as if he was Ovid Kol Torah Kula. And here we're saying the Kol Torah Kula, you're not able to, we don't trust the Shechita. So the three steps, right? You have one Avera, you have Avodah Zarah, then you have all Averas. All Averas, everyone agrees you don't trust the Shechita. One Avera, everyone agrees you can't trust the Shechita. And in between, the Avodah Zarah is in between. And there's another example of something that if you a mummer for Nevelus, so that since that's the actual mitzvah, we're also a little more worried about that. I'm sorry. Ratio mumul choter kul. It's just a mumul davra. Ema sefer chutz min amumul menasach asayam machal Shabbos v'resya. Hay mumul hechidami. What's this last mumul that Bryce talking about? Imumul choter kul lahainu ratio. Now we already said he's not trusted. Imumul davra echad kasha mitziyasa. The middle part we had said that for mumul davra echad he is trusted. Elav hakikam. Chutz min hamumar lenasach asayam machal Shabbos v'resya. Actually, so there's a third exception. So someone who's a mumar lenasach yayin, that is menasach yayin is avodah zarah. He's pouring out wine for avodah zarah, and also mechal Shabbos for hasya is also more of a mumar that we're not going to trust the shechita. Once he's that far gone, we can't trust him for anything. But in any case, all of this was talking about Lagabe Avodah Zarah. Alma mumul avodah gechavim havim mumul chol Torah kula. Right. So this is what you were saying. We see from this that we're saying Menasach Hasayayin is considered a mummer, that we don't trust this. We're not going to allow him to bring a carbon. So also because he's treated as if he's mumul chol Torah kula. So we should say that also Lagabe trusting his shechita. Tiyufta de Ravanan, tiyufta. So this is a kasha on Ravanan. Because we're saying that a mumul avodas gechavim is like a mumul chol Torah kula, which even Rav Anan agrees you can't trust a shechita. So you should also not trust a mumul avodas gechavim. So, now we're moving away from when we were talking about shechita. We're talking about this brisa that we just brought, Lagabe bringing a carbon. Is this really the source that you can't take a mumma's carbon? It says, "Me'am aretz prat l'mumar." The Torah says, "Im nefesh achas sechta b'shkoga me'am aretz b'asoysa achas nitzah Hashem ashtaloysa sena v'yashem." If someone is by a chatas, it says, "Me'am aretz prat l'mumar." It has to be from someone who's amongst the nation, not someone who's a mumar. Shimon asher lo sena b'shkoga v'ashem. Hashav midiyase maybe carbon al shigase. Any shav midiyase any maybe carbon al shigase. He learns a slightly different lima to tell you that we don't accept the mumma's carbon by a chatas, because it says asher lo asana b'shkoga v'ashem. What does it say? Asher lo asana b'ashem. It's we're saying twice the same thing. It's coming to tell you someone, if he were to be told that that he's making a mistake, he wouldn't have done it. He can bring a chatas, but someone who would have done it, even if he would have known that he's not supposed to do it, such a person, he was a shchayik, but had you told him that you're doing the wrong thing, he would have done it anyway. He doesn't bring a chatas. There's another. He's essentially a mummer, right? He's saying it's somebody who wouldn't care to do an avera. So one man learned from Mama Aretz, and the other one learned it from Asher Lo Yasena. But I mean, my benai, what's the difference in these two limudim? To tell you don't bring a chatas if you're a mummer, if you're rejecting the mitzvah. The difference will be someone who's a mummer for one avera, and he's bringing a carbon for a different avera that he was like. That means he eats chayla, but he doesn't eat dam, and he ate dam b'shayge. So, according to the first mandam, who says a mummer can't bring a carbon, it doesn't make a difference why he's a mummer. For any mitzvah, he's going to be excluded. The second one is saying if he would have been informed that the thing he's doing, he wouldn't have stopped, then he doesn't bring a chatos. That's only if he's a mummer for that mitzvah that he's over. If he's a mummer for a different avera, that wouldn't stop him from being a chatos for this. So, but in any case, we're explaining what the difference between these two shittas are, but these are both different psukim to tell you the rule that you don't bring a carbon chatas for a mummer doesn't bring a carbon chatas. And we had said in the previous Gemara, the previous brisa, that it comes from the michem, from a different pasuk. We need one pasuk by chatas. On this amud we're talking about a pasuk for chatas. In the previous amud we were talking about a pasuk for oila, utzricha, and we need for each one. Yashmin chatas mishum del kaparu. But if we just say by chatas, that a mummer, someone who doesn't follow the Torah on a mitzvah, can't bring it because he's getting kapara. So if he's not makabel the mitzvah, he can't get a kapara for it. Kapara is his privilege. It's not a right. Aval oila the doynu emel kabel mine. But if oila, which is stam, he's doing it as an adava, he's doing it from his choice. Maybe that we accept from him. He's not getting a kapara from him. Yashmin oila mishum delav chiyuvu. Maybe an oila, a person is not obligated to bring an oila. So therefore, that's why we say, okay, don't bring it if you're a mummer. Avachatas the chiyuvu. The Torah said you have to bring a chatas b'yoyve b'shayi. Maybe that we will accept since the Torah says to do it, and he's mekabel the mitzvah. He's doing yaitz the mitzvah of a Torah. We don't tell him not to because he's a mummer. That's what we need separate for each one. We had darshan from the brisa. We had said behema tells you afilu poisha Yisrael. Behema includes in the pasuk by oila even a poisha Yisrael can bring a carbon. Paksiv adam behema tashia Hashem. The Rebbeinu Shalom will say v'adam behema v'amrav Yudam Rav elu bnei adam sheina rum b'das u'mesim matzam kevehema. This is referring to people who are very clever, but even so, they don't treat themselves. They make themselves like a behemoth. They make themselves little. They're anovim. So it's a praise for people that they make themselves like a behemoth. That they don't. They're not arrogant because of their knowledge. So when it says adam behemoth, that's a praise that they're anovim. Where it says just behemoth, that means someone who's Paisha Yisrael. Correct them up. When we say both Adam Behema, is that always a praise? Zerati is Beis Yisrael, Zera Adam v'Zera Behema. It says the Rebbeinu says in the future I'm going to cause the Yidden to increase the Zera Adam and the Zera Behema. So and the Behema over there, it's talking about the Amaratzim. It's not talking about the people who are less chashiv. When they're mentioned, it's two separate phrases, then it's not a mile. Amar of Chanan, Amar of Yaakov bar Idi, Amar of Yeshua ben Levi, Mishum bar Kapara. Gamliel beis Dinai nimnu al shchitas kuti v'asru. Going all the way back, right? We've been talking now about shchitas mumar, and we got into this whole diversion. But originally we had said the different shitas of what the Mishnah was talking about, and one of the shitas was Abaye and Rava. They were chaylik about shchitas kusi. If lechatchila, it's only when it's ayman al gabav, or shchitas kusi is even when it's yaitzev and nichnas it's you could trust his shchita. Remember, kusi is someone who's gerei arayis that they believe in certain things but not in others. So we say shchita is one of the things that they believe in, but they don't believe in lifnei iver. So therefore, you have to make sure that they would eat the food that they themselves shechted, or you watched it. But anyway, Nimno Shchitas Kutu Yivasrua. Reb Gamliel made a gzeira that you can't eat Shchitas Kusi. But it's not clear, is he going after what Abaye and Rava had said, that Shchitas Kusi, you need to have Oymed al Gabov, or Yetzev Nechnes, or is it talking about even after that, even with the Oymed al Gabov? Is it talking about even Oymed al Gabov, or is he just saying the same gzeira, you can't trust it unless it's Oymed al Gabov? He said maybe that which Rabbi Gamliel was saying was just saying the same thing that Abaye had said, that it has to be, it's talking about our mission, and it's talking about where I'm al Gaba. You're acting like someone who never learned opened up a Gemara. What does he have to say that for? We already were makabel that's the halacha, that when it's Aymer al Gabav, you can trust the kusi. When it's not Aymer al Gabav, you can't. So what would Gamliel have to be nimnu as if it's a new halacha? So was he makabel this chastisement where he said, you don't know what you're talking about? It's a new gzera that says even when it's Aymer al Gabav, you can't trust it. Toshma, Ani reisias Rabbi Yochanan she'achal mishchitas kutzi. Rav Asi achal mishchitas kutzi. I saw Rabbi Yochanan and Rav Asi that they ate the shchita of a kusi. V'taba Rav Zera, and Rav Zera was inquiring, like Shmilu, do you have a Shmilu, have a Makabli law? Is it because they did not hear this Zera of Rav Gamliel? Because had they heard of Rav Gamliel, they would have been makabel from it and not eaten from a shchitas kusi. Or maybe they heard of Rav Gamliel, but they don't agree with him. They think that shchitas kusi is still mut. They must have heard about it and they didn't agree with him. Because if you'll say that they didn't hear about Rav Gamliel, but they would have agreed if they would have accepted if they would have heard. How could it be that had they known about it, they wouldn't have eaten it, but now they ate it be'isr as an isr d'Rabban? You all know the famous story of the Chamor of Pinchas ben Yair that's going to be coming up in a couple of blot, that the Rebbe Shalom made sure that the Chamor of Pinchas ben Yair didn't eat treif. Certainly, these great Talmidei Chachamim, Rav Asi and Rabbi Yochanan would never have eaten something that was be'is. So now, if we're saying that Rabbi Gamliel, who was it? Zeiri was not makabel from Rav Yaakov Ha'idi, that he said that Gamliel is saying a new gzera on top of the original isser to eat unless it's Aymer al Gaba. Lishani le, let him answer, Kam Yisrael Aymer al Gaba, Kam Shein Yisrael Aymer al Gaba. Let him answer that no, Rabbi Yochanan and Rav Asi were eating because it was a Yisrael Aymer al Gaba, so there was no problem. And that which Rav Gamliel said it's aser is just talking about where there's no Aymer al Gaba. Elav Shamaim no kibla minei. It must be his makabel from him. Zero is makabel from him that ain't a chanami. It must be Rav Gamliel made a new gzera that in all circumstances you can never eat from a kusi. And then we have this question: why was Rabbi Yochanan and Rav Asi eating? Shma mina.
We're not going to answer that.
We did answer. We just came to a conclusion that we were questioning what is the gzera of Gamliel. Is Rav Gamliel just reiterating what Abaya and Rava had said, that it has to be Aymer al Gaba to eat from a kusi, but if not, you can't. And that's what he's saying. Without Aymer al Gaba, you can't. Or was Rav Gamliel saying a new gzera, that even if it's Aymer al Gaba, you can never eat from a kusi? We're about to say the reason why, but it's a new gzera, and therefore there's no way out of it. So he's saying if he was masking that Rav Gamliel was not saying a nukzer. He was just saying of what they said. We could have. What was his problem that he saw them eating from a shechita of a kusi? He could have been talking about Aymed al Gabav. So it must be this is a nukzer which doesn't allow for Aymed al Gabav. That must have been the conclusion. Just quickly we'll see. My time of Gazer Bahu Rabbanan. Why was it that Taka they were geyser that you can't eat from the shechita of a kusi? Remeir sent to bring wine from a kusi. Ashkehu Saba. They came across a Saba, which they say is often Eliyahu Hanavi. Amalei v'samta sakam b'layacha in Baal Nefesh. Said you should place a knife by your face if you're a Baal Nefesh, if you're a better person. Meaning, you shouldn't really be drinking this wine from a kusi. He made a gzera, you cannot drink from the yayin of a kusi. My timer. They found a picture of a dove on the top of Hagrizin. The kusim would worship this dove, so they were oiv the avodah zara, and therefore you couldn't trust their wine. Since some kusim are oiv avodah zara, therefore he didn't trust their wine. He was guys on all kusim because of the miyah. And Rabbi Gamliel, who paskin that you can't eat the shechita of a kusi, he holds like Rav Meir, who says that they're chashed on avodah zara. And like we said, you can't eat the shechita. We don't hold like Ravana, and we say that you cannot eat from the shechita of avodah zara. And since a miyat of kusim are of the avodah zara, we don't eat from the shechita as well. Okay, we'll stop over here.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Rav Anan had said before, Rav Anan said before.